Man, it has been a long off season for the Indianapolis Colts, starting with the head coach process, then the draft process of which quarterback we were going to get, and now this whole Jonathan Taylor drama, which has escalated even further this past week. As yesterday, it was announced that the Colts have officially given running back Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Horseshoe Show here on Surge Sports TV. I am your host, Jack Rizzo. Thrilled to join y'all for my show tonight. Regular season's coming, guys. We've got about today is 17 days, 18 days. I'm sorry, 18 days until the week one opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Super pumped about that. It's gonna be awesome to finally have some football back. Still have a couple more things though before that. Obviously, we have to see if JT gets traded, and we have a preseason game tomorrow against the Eagles, which I'll get into a little later. But thrilled to be joined again by you guys tonight. Before I start, I want to give a shout out to my friend Josh, friend of the channel. I want to give a quick shout out to him. I just want to continue to offer prayers for the people in Maui. Devastating wildfires and the people on the West Coast with Hurricane Hillary, which just made landfall in California. Just hope you guys all are doing okay over there. Anyways, let's get right into the show. So in today's show, I'm gonna mainly cover two things. First, I'm gonna give my final 53-man roster projection for the Colts, and I'm gonna talk about the JT situation a little more. Now, I will say spoiler alert, next week will be my Colts regular season predictions video, talking about who I think is gonna break out, who I think is gonna disappoint, what the record is week by week, how the rookies are going to look. What is Shane Steichen going to do? Next week episode is going to be big, guys. So I really need you guys there to support me. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to fix the lighting because it seems like there's something off with it. Just hold on. All right, sorry about that, guys. I think that's better. All right, let's get right into it. So, the roster cuts for the NFL this Tuesday is when the roster gets cut from 90 all the way down to 53. It's just one big cut now. It used to be like a series of days where the roster would get smaller until the final 53 man was released, but now it's just one big cut down to 53, and it's gonna be really interesting to see who is gonna end up making this 53-man roster. And I have my own prediction for that. And it's the best one too because I'm always right. No, I'm not. But anyways, let's get right into it. All right, so starting off with the easiest position to project as the quarterback. Now the new rule this year is that teams can have a third quarterback on the active roster. Case of what happened with the 49ers last year in the championship game when they literally had no quarterbacks left. They were running Christian McCaffrey out there, and they had Brock Purdy on the field despite the fact that he had a torn UCL and couldn't throw the ball. So obviously the Colts' three quarterbacks will be Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, and Sam Ehlinger. I don't even really have to predict that. That's pretty much just how it's going to be. There's not even a fourth quarterback on this roster to compete with Ehlinger as the third guy. But even then, Ehlinger is worthy of being the third guy. He had a really good – he's always been good. He's shined in preseason again. It seems like he does this every year. And he didn't play that bad in the 3 games that he started last year. So – 3 games that he started last year. So happy to have Sam on the roster. And it definitely makes you feel more comfortable having 3 quarterbacks instead of 2 and running out of quarterbacks like what the Niners last year. So as for running backs, there's going to be 4 that make the roster. However, here comes the shocker. Jonathan Taylor is not one of them. Nope. I think JT is going to get traded. I don't think he's going to be on this roster come next Tuesday. Now, I'll save my opinions on that for a little bit later. But as for right now, the 4 running backs that are going to make the Colts roster should be Zach Moss, Evan Hull, Deion Jackson, and probably Kenyon Drake. At least for who's on the roster now. They could maybe make a signing. Maybe they'll try to go after Kareem Hunt again. I also do have my mark here, my papers with the roster. Like like a little like asterisk next to the player that are locks to make the roster. So the quarterbacks, it's every one of them. Running backs, Deion Jackson, Evan Hull, and Zach Moss all have asterisks next to them. They're all absolutely 100% locks to make the roster. Zach Moss will be the number one if Taylor is gone. Evan Hull's had a really impressive camp so far, both running the ball and catching the ball. And Deion Jackson showed a lot of flashes last year, especially in that one game against Jacksonville. And Kenyon Drake is the best running back out of that, and he has that experience, so he can help the young guys. Again, I just don't really think Jonathan Taylor is going to be here come next Tuesday. I think they're going to just trade him off. I think they see the value in that. So ultimately, that is my prediction for the running backs depth chart. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. So I've got just 5 receivers making the roster. Colts got hit pretty hard in the receiver room last week when Ashton Dulin tore his ACL during the joint practice with the Chicago Bears, out for the season. Colts lose again, a guy who's been always a solid depth piece at receiver and their best special teams player at the position as well. True Gunner, he was always out there. They used him in some trickery plays as well. He was a lock to make the roster too, so it really sucks that they lost Ashton Dulin. So I've got 5 receivers making it to the roster, and that's going to be Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Isaiah McKenzie, and Amari Rodgers is my 5th receiver to pick. The first 4 that I mentioned are all absolute locks to make it. Pittman and Pierce are starters. They've been starters since the start of camp. It looks like Josh Downs has won the starting slot receiver job, so obviously he'll be there, and he's done some returning as well. And Isaiah McKenzie is also a lock because of his versatility. They can use him in gadget plays, and he's also a big player on special teams in the return game. I actually really like the Colts receiver room. I think there's a lot of versatility, a lot of players with different skill sets, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this year, especially Pierce and Downs. I think they're going to be really good, and we know Pittman is always good. So I really like the receivers. As for the tight ends, I'm going to go with 4 tight ends to make the roster. Shane Steichen said, kind of like pointed out that it's either going to be 6 receivers and 3 tight ends or 5 receivers and 4 tight ends. However, it's Shane Steichen seems to value tight ends, so I decided to go with 4 tight ends to put on my roster, and the 4 are going to be Kylan Granson, Jelani Woods, Mo Alley Cox, and Drew Ogletree and Will Mallory, not Mo Alley Cox. I'm sorry. So the only locks for the tight end room out of those 4 are Granson and Jelani Woods. So they're both absolutely locks to make it. Granson by default because he's the only tight end that's been healthy all of camp, and he's also shown flashes as well. He's got incredible speed for a tight end. Still has yet to find the end zone in the first 2 years of his season. This is a big year for him. But Granson is definitely making the roster, though. Super excited to see what he can do. And Jelani, I mean, the potential is just there. He has the highest potential for sure out of all the tight ends in that room. So he's making it as well. Unfortunately, he's been banged up with a hamstring. Still hasn't come back yet. Hopefully he should be okay for week 1, but he's a lock to make it. I think Drew Ogletree should make it because he's done really well in each of his first 2 years of camp. He's a good run blocker. He can offer some things in the passing game. I think you have to have Drew Ogletree in there. It's close though. And then Will Mallory, the other tight end, they used a 5th round pick on him. I think he has to make it. Also potential's there for him. And surprisingly, the most experienced tight end in this room, Mo Alley Cox, does not make my final roster. Why? I just don't really think, what has he done to earn it, really? Other than the fact that he's been here for a while. I mean, I just don't really think he deserves the spot. There's just kind of no room for him. As a pass catcher, he has like 1 or 2 good games a year and then falls off after that. And it hasn't worked for him as a run blocker either. I can't believe that contract they gave him, 3 years, $17 million. That's just not valuable from Wally Cox. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts try to explore a trade for him. I wouldn't be surprised if they just cut him though either. They just cut him and move on. This tight end room is really crowded. I just don't know how much room there is for Mo Alley anymore. So, again, the 4 tight ends, Jelani Woods, Kylan Granson, Drew Ogletree, and Will Mallory. All right, let's go down to the offensive line, a group that I think might struggle this year. They've struggled in both joint practices with the Bears and the Eagles. They've struggled at points in camp. They looked good in the first preseason game against Buffalo. Second team did not look good at all. The second team is concerning for sure, but the linemen are going to make the roster. Let's start with the starters first. Go from left to right. You've got Bernard Raymond, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and Braden Smith. Those are the starters. Obviously, they're locks to make it. Also locks to make the roster are Danny Pinter, and Blake Freeland as well. Danny Pinter is a great backup center. You always need one of those on the roster. So he's going to make it. Blake Freeland as well. Again, rookie, they used a 4th-round pick on him. So he pretty much has to make the opening day roster. He's been used as the starting right tackle, and Braden Smith has been injured a little bit this camp. Hasn't really done a lot, but still should be solid rotational piece. And then the other two linemen that are gonna make it are gonna be Emil Ekiyor Jr., the undrafted free agent from Alabama. Interior O-line depth has definitely had his struggles so far, but that's expected from young offensive linemen. And Arlington Hambright, who's emerged as a pretty solid rotational piece as well. So those are the 9 linemen that are going to make it. So on the offensive side of the football, that's 25 players on the offensive side. They're going to make the roster. In fact, I have it completely split. You've got 25 offensive players making the roster, 25 defensive players, and 3 special teamers. All right, let's go to defense now. Let's start off with the defensive line. In my opinion, this is the Colts' strongest room of all their positions this year. They have got so much depth on this defensive line. And their roster is going to look like this. Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam is probably the 2 starting edge guys. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart in the middle. Dio Odangbo and Tyquan Lewis, who are going to be kind of like your rotational pieces. Along with Eric Johnson, who has had a really good camp as well, 6th-round pick last year. And Tommy Adebawore, I think I said that right. Another draft pick the Colts had. Super high potential with him. Those 8 guys are all locks to make it. And then for the 9th guy I have McTelvin Agim. I'm not sure how you say that. He's had a really good camp as well. He might be the first defensive tackle depth behind Buckner and Stewart. This room is really deep, and I think the Colts are going to really – I think the defensive line is going to be the strong suit for the Colts this year, kind of like the way it was last year. Unfortunately, though, two players that are not bad players at all didn't make it, and that's Taven Bryan and Alquadine Muhammad. Maybe they'll be on the practice squad. Maybe they'll just be released, but they could definitely do something good for other teams as well. All right, as for linebackers, I think these 6 are pretty obvious. It's pretty much what everybody says. It's Shaq Leonard, Zaire Franklin, E.J. Speed, Grant Stewart, JoJo Doman, and Sejun Olobi. I think I said that right. First 5 guys, all locks. Doman and Grant Stewart provide special teams, which is really important. And Leonard, Franklin, and E.J. Speed are your starting linebackers. Really good linebacker room. Even losing Bobby Okereke, I like this linebacker room. Shaq Leonard, it surprised everyone with how much he's played in camp. He is in the concussion protocol right now, but if he is able to return to at least close to his all-pro form, this defense is going to be fun to watch once again. I mean, this guy's a turnover machine, and he brings the energy that no Colts player can match. Can't wait to have him back. Zaire Franklin set a franchise record in tackles last year. Really excited to see what he can do. And EJ Speed is extremely talented, and he is very fast for a linebacker, fittingly. And then Olobi is the one guy that I don't have as a lock, but he's had some pretty solid camp. He's awful in coverage. In that preseason game, got lit up several times in coverage, but he's got some potential. So I like Olobi as a potential depth piece on this linebacking core. All right, cornerbacks. This is probably the weakest room in the Colts depth chart. A lot of inexperienced players here. The one experienced guy is Kenny Moore. I will say, though, Kenny Moore has shined in camp so far. He missed a little bit of time earlier in camp with an injury, but he has had a very, very good camp. And the Colts need Kenny Moore this year. They absolutely need him to get through the season. Like, if Kenny Moore gets hurt, this secondary is in trouble. I would argue that he's the most indispensable player on this entire roster. They absolutely cannot lose Kenny Moore. And one of the reasons why is because they have 2 guys with like 1 combined career start that are going to be the outside starting corners in week 1 with Darrell Baker and Dallas Flowers. Now, Darrell Baker's had a very good camp. Extremely impressive. He's had a tough time, though, against Alec Pierce. He had a tough time in joint practice yesterday against A.J. Brown, or maybe Devontae Smith, one of the 2. They both dominated the Colts secondary yesterday. This secondary is going to improve as the season goes on, but at the start of the season, they're going to be rough. they're going to get lit up quite a bit, especially by good passing offenses. Jacksonville in week 1, the Rams in week 4, Baltimore in week 3, Jacksonville again in week 6. I'm just not sure how much the secondary is going to, be good in the first few weeks. It's definitely the biggest cause for concern for the Colts going into this season. Maybe other than the offensive line, but at least the first team offensive line isn't bad. The secondary as a whole, though, is just not good. It's probably like a bottom 5 secondary in the NFL. I don't know why they haven't gone out and signed a veteran corner, but whatever, Chris Ballard. Yeah. All right. Safeties. So we're going to have 4 safeties making it. It's going to be, and they're all locks too. Julian Blackmon, Nick Cross, Rodney Thomas, and Trevor Denbo. Blackmon and Thomas are the 2 starters. Thomas, really impressive rookie year last year. Blackmon going into a contract year, so big year for him. Nick Cross has emerged in camp. Him and Trevor Denbo, the 2 backups, had really good preseason games this last Saturday against Chicago. Really impressive stuff from them. The secondary is bad, but I think the safety positions are much stronger than the corner positions. For sure. All right, and the final position, the final 3 players are going to be the special teams guys. All locks, pretty much. Matt Gay is your kicker. I mean, he missed that 28-yarder, which is inexcusable. Let's just hope that doesn't happen again. Rigo Sanchez as well. And the punter, obviously, he's back after tearing his Achilles last year. Super happy to have him back. Rigo's a great guy, great person. He's had some very long punts so far in practice and in the preseason. And everyone on the Colts loves Rigo. So happy he's back. And Luke Rhodes, the long snapper. You can never forget about the long snapper. I mean, Bill Belichick once spent almost 10 full minutes answering a question from somebody from the Boston Globe about long snapping and the history of it. So long snapping is way more important than people think. All right, so that is my overall 53-man roster projection. Some guys that you could say maybe got snubbed. A couple noticeable guys that probably didn't make it. As for a couple on the offensive side, Mike Strawn, one of their receivers who's been here for a few years, I just don't think he's going to make it. He's had his moments in camp, but he's been quiet in 11 on 11. Made one nice grab in the preseason on the first game against Buffalo, but he doesn't offer anything on special teams, and he has 5 catches in his NFL career. So I just don't think he's going to make it. Maybe practice squad. Maybe they just waive him. So we'll see what happens with Mike Strawn. James Washington, who they just signed a few days ago, made a really nice grab in that first preseason game. I think more so just of a camp body, though. I don't think he's actually going to make the roster. Jawan Winfrey, who's made some nice plays in camp, special teams guy, but I think I just like Amari Rodgers a little more. So unfortunately, I don't have him making the roster either. Obviously, Mo Alley Cox is one of the biggest snubs, probably. A lot of people are going to say, well, he's the most experienced tight end in the room. He's most familiar with the system. Again, I respect that. I just don't think there's enough room for him here. The young guys, they need their opportunities. We can't have Mo Alley just keep taking away their opportunities. I love the guy. He's been a Colt for 5 years now, but I think it's just time to move on now. Simple as that. So those are probably the guys in offense that you guys are probably surprised I didn't have. On defense, probably the 2 tackles, Taven Bryan and Al-Quadin Muhammad. You're probably surprised didn't make it. There's just so much competition on the defensive line. Like nobody I mentioned on that defensive line is a bad player at all. They all have a lot of value to offer to the Colts. The defensive line, again, the strong suit. Linebackers, there's really no snubs. It's all the guys you'd expect. Corner, maybe Tony Brown's the one guy you're surprised didn't make it. Again, just not enough room for him. They need the rookies to be there. And I think, actually, I'm not sure. Let me reiterate the corner. So it's Kenny Moore, Dallas Flowers, Darrell Baker, Juju Brents, Darius Rush, and Jalen Jones. The latter 3 are all rookies, and they've all had their moments in camp. But because they're rookies, because the Colts value them, they have to make the roster. So no Tony Brown, unfortunately, for the Colts on the roster. Maybe practice squad guy, but that's pretty much it. Safety, no snubs. Pretty much the 4 we were all expecting. Special teams, I mean, it's just the 3 guys there. There was really not much kicking competition at all. So that is my projection for the 53-man roster. Let me just make sure the sound on this is working. Hold up. All right, we're good. Sorry about that, guys. Hey, Sarah, how you doing? Thank you. Appreciate you as always, Sarah, joining these first commenter today. Thank you for joining, Sarah. And Gold Colts. Yeah, I totally agree. These next 18 days can't come soon enough. Yep, this is what I was gonna get into next. All right. So thank you, Sarah, for introducing me into that. For kind of like introducing me into this. Let's get to the Jonathan Taylor news. The news that everybody's talking about. This has been going on for like 4 weeks, but it feels like 4 months with how much has been going on. This all started this really started during when back on the 25th when Taylor was put on PUP, like the first part of the storyline that he wasn't practicing. And then like a week later, we found out that Jonathan Taylor had requested a trade from the Colts. Just wasn't happy with the situation. I wasn't really happy with it because not because I don't want to trade him, I do want to trade him, but the fact that he said before that he would play out this year on his contract and now went back on his word, switched agencies and now is demanding a contract, that's just not really like professional of him. And I don't blame the Colts for not wanting to give him one. He had a big ankle injury last year. Apparently this is still an issue. And again, running backs just don't have that much value anymore. Considering all the carries he had in college, this is a really good conversation I had with Drake a few weeks ago on the show. Running backs are just not worth the value anymore. So it's really hard for me to see an extension coming for JT. And now, of course, about 3 weeks after requesting the trade, the Colts have now given Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade out of Indianapolis. And we just learned today from Stephen Holder of ESPN that the Colts have given Taylor and his team a Tuesday deadline in order to in order to find a trade partner. Now, Tuesday is a significant day because that's the day the roster is cut down. And if Taylor is still a Colt come next Tuesday, they're going to have to make a decision on him whether to put him on the active roster or put him on the physically unable to perform or keep him on the PUP list. In that case, he would have to miss the first 4 games of the season. Now, again, I do not think Taylor's still going to be here come this next week. I truly think that the Colts are going to trade him for the right price. Now, the Colts, they said they want a first-round pick or a number of picks that equates to one. I don't know if they're going to get that, but if they get like a second and a third or like a second, even like a second and a fourth or a second and a fifth, I think they take that. There's rumors, too, that the Colts, the offers they've gotten are more than they expected. So also according to Stephen Holder of ESPN, there are 6 teams that have now called the Colts about Taylor, about Jonathan Taylor. 2 of those teams have made offers to the Colts about Jonathan Taylor. So there is lots of interest in the league. And I really think that at some point, the Colts are just going to decide to trade Taylor. I really do believe this. I really think Taylor's going to get traded for the right price. Now, one of the teams that have that I can confirm that I believe I can confirm that have actually made an offer to the Colts is the Miami Dolphins. This makes sense. The Dolphins don't really have a true number one running back right now. I think they could really use Jonathan Taylor. They've been really aggressive over the last few years by trading for guys like Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb and Jalen Ramsey. I think, and why not go get Jonathan Taylor? I mean, he'd be a huge piece for that offense. The other thing, though, about this Taylor trade, though, is that the team trading for him would have to pay him. Otherwise, it's the same situation with Taylor, just on a different team. So these teams that are trading for JT, they have to be sure, like almost sure that they're going to pay him. But if these teams are calling the Colts about him, that must mean that they feel pretty confident that they can get an extension done with Taylor once he gets there. The other thing, too, is his health, though. Obviously, all trades in the NFL pen physicals. Will Jonathan Taylor pass a physical in order to get traded? I honestly don't really think it's going to be that much of an issue. So I'm going to list off the teams that I think are good fits for Jonathan Taylor. The Dolphins are already one that we already knew about. Again, just makes so much sense. They don't have a true number one running back. They've already got Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Other than the tight end room, if they get Jonathan Taylor, their offense is one of like the top 5 in the NFL. There's really no weaknesses outside of tight end. I think the Bears could be interested as well. The Bears are starting to trend upwards as well. They have lots of cap space. They have 2 first-round picks next year. They have Justin Fields and DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney. If they just get a good running back like Taylor to pair with Khalil Herbert, that could be a really dangerous offense there in Chicago. Once the offensive line improves there, it's really, really intriguing for them. The Eagles are rumored to have made offers to the Colts about Jonathan Taylor. We knew. Yeah, yep, Sarah. Yep, Sarah. Right on point. Right on cue. they're rumored to be in the Derrick Henry sweepstakes earlier this offseason. So it's not surprising at all that they're in on JT. Maybe that's the reason why they fought and joined practice yesterday. Probably not, but yeah, you get the point. Taylor was there though yesterday. Apparently though the Colts forced him to go. Not exactly sure why, but we'll have to see. Also, the other thing is that it's hard to like speculate on this because Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay have not spoken to the media in quite some time. It's been like, I think the last time we had somebody speak, Chris Ballard last spoke to the media on the first day of camp, and Jim Irsay last spoke on the day he had the meeting with Jonathan Taylor on the team bus. So it's hard to figure out what's going on with JT, but from what we do know, there is interest, and this has a real chance of getting done. Again, there obviously is a chance that JT still plays out the season as a Colt. However, there is lots of interest from teams around the league. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts are able to get a first-round pick for this guy. I mean, he is 24. He did win the rushing title just 2 years ago. Now, I talked about it before with all the carries he's had. But again, I really, really think that this is truly a possibility that we could see Jonathan Taylor get traded. My prediction, you know what? Let's go all in. Let's go with Jonathan Taylor to the Chicago Bears. I tweeted this earlier. And let's give the bit, Josh, if you're watching this, I think you guys are going to land Jonathan Taylor. And in return, call me crazy, the Carolina Panthers 2024 first round pick. The Bears have this pick because of the trade, the DJ Moore trade, where they got Carolina's first round pick next year. I really think the Bears would be willing to do this. They have the cap space, and again, they have a lot of draft picks already. They have a second rounder, and they have an extra second in 2025. They'd still have a first rounder next year. Probably going to be like a 6 or 7 win team. I think the Panthers are going to be a little better. It's my bold prediction. Probably not going to happen. I think there's probably like a less than 20% chance the Colts can actually get a first rounder in this trade. But never say never, guys. You never know. All right, and now to wrap this up, let's talk about things that have actually happened on the field for the Colts. So their second preseason game came last Saturday against the Bears. They won 24-17. Most of the starters did not play. 20 of the 22 did not play. The only two that started were Darrell Baker and Dallas Flowers, the two corners. Made sense to start them, though. They need as much reps as possible for sure. But the rest of the starters, actually Josh Downs started, but I don't think he's an official starter yet, so he doesn't count. But yeah, it was a good preseason game. Even without AR out there, it was still fun to watch. As for guys that I thought shined in that game, Gardner Minshew, Josh Downs, Sam Ehlinger, Trevor Denbo, and Nick Cross. Those are the guys that I thought really shine. Oh, hey, we got my broadcast partner Eli in here. What's up, Eli? How you doing, man? St. Mary's, their first St. Mary's where we go to. Our first high school football game is this Friday at 6:00 right here on Search Sports TV. So if you guys are interested into some high school football, catch us. Eli and I will be on the call for that one. We are super pumped for it. There is nothing like high school football under the Knights on Friday night. So the Colts had a joint practice yesterday with the Eagles. Very feisty. There was a ton of fights. One where Jason Kelsey ran over Zaire Franklin after he delivered a late hit on Kenny Gainwell. There was also one on let me see. Oh, one where Derek Barnett hit Anthony Richardson after the play had ended. That caused a fight. Good to see the offensive line though standing up for their quarterback. And the practice actually ended on a fight. Now, I'm not a big Eagles fan, but I will give credit though to Jason Kelsey, who said we went too far. We've never gone this far to joint practice. I think both teams deserve blame. But again, it's joint practice though. It's gonna happen. These things happen in joint practice all the time. I want to talk about though real quick something about the Cleveland Browns. We found out today that Kevin Stefanski has a policy for joint practice fights. If a starter is in a fight during joint practice, they are forced to play the next preseason game. Start. And if it's a non-starter in a fight, they are not allowed to play, which further diminishes their chances of being on the roster. It's a really interesting policy, but it's honestly smart, though. It's a pretty interesting policy, and I don't know. Hats off to Kevin Stefanski for that. Make sure to keeping his players disciplined. So the Colts' second preseason game tomorrow night, 8:00 on Amazon Prime. I will be watching. I'll have some observations on the next week along with my overall season predictions. Anthony Richardson is going to start. Most of the starters are going to start. Shane Steichen said that's going to be a case-by-case guy. In my opinion, I think they need to go out and play a whole half. They need as much reps as possible. You cannot say AR has 3 drives and he's ready for the regular season. He needs to go out there and play a lot. Especially, this is a good opportunity for him too against a really good team, a really good defense in the Eagles, who I think are going to play their starters because they haven't played him in the first 2 weeks to show what he's made of. And AR looked good against the Bills starters in the first game too. So maybe he shows something against the Eagles starters. All right, so I don't really think I have much more to talk about. Again, to kind of just wrap this up, final 53-man roster projection. If you missed that, go back earlier in the video, check that out. My overall opinions on the Jonathan Taylor news. Yes, I do think he is going to get traded. When? I don't know. It could. I'd probably say we're probably still a few days away from that happening if that does happen. Also, my thoughts of the preseason game, thought they looked pretty good. Eagles game, excited to watch that again. It's on Amazon Prime, so y'all can watch that. I think that's pretty much gonna do it though. Thank you to Sarah and Eli for joining me here in the group chat. Thank you to everyone for joining in today. Want to give one more shout out to my good friend Josh, friend of the channel, always supporting me. Just want to give a shout out to him. Make sure to catch Eli and I for our high school football game again Friday night at 6:00 right here on Surge. It's pretty much going to do it. And join Eli and I tomorrow night at 7 for the 12th Horseshoe podcast. And go check out Eli over at Sports Mano a Mano. And subscribe to the Surge Sports TV channel. Get all the latest news on sports in the United States. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining me. Jack Rizzo signing off. See y'all.